welcome to episode 98 of Retro Encounter, RPGFan's off-topic podcast. I am today's host, Peter Triezenberg. I have Fury on the boards, and joining me today, we have Robert Fenner.
I'm here with 98 red balloons, but don't call me in second place. Hello.
All right.
It sounded better in my head than it did out loud.
It's an intro. Well, okay, so listeners, I was wondering whether it was episode 98 or 99 here, because I was going to make a joke about 9,999 damage, but alas, we're 98, so we're going to settle for the balloons instead. Also joining me today is Mike Sollosi.
Hey everybody, Mike Sollosi, Monsoon on the boards. You've heard me on many podcasts, perhaps, so I'll just let the introductions continue.
And also joining us today is Alana Hagues.
Hi everyone. I don't come with any jokes either. Diving Falcons on the boards, and good to speak to you all again.
Well, and today our topic is a very interesting one as far as RPG subjects go, and that is the topic of ultimate weapons.
Sometimes the ultimate weapons are even called ultimate weapon.
Sometimes they just get lazy.
The real ultimate weapons are the friends we make along the way.
Hey.
Aww.
Yes.
You're blindsided by the emotion.
I'm blindsided by friendship.
Oh man.
Oh, it's like a Tales game.
Oh no, we're fighting the boss, and then there's the moment where just everyone that we've met along the way is praying for us and just appears as a ghost, even if you're Tella and you've died, and...
The ultimate weapon was swallowed by the darkness.
Darkness, darkness, hearts, friendship. But putting all that friendship talk aside, many RPGs have one or several pieces of gear that are just considered the best ultimate gear in that game. They can be character specific. They can just be, in general, this is like the most optimized for your build. Sometimes you have to do a side quest. Sometimes you have to fight a boss. Sometimes you have to do both of those things. So what I wanted to do was just go through our fine contributors and see if they had any stories of trying to get the ultimate gear in their games. Does anyone want to step up to the plate first? Take that as a no. Okay, in that case, I'll begin. Whenever I think of doing ultimate weapons in RPGs, the first one that comes to mind, probably surprising no one, I'm sorry, Mike, is the ultimate weapon from the Kingdom Hearts games.
So, should I just mute my mic, or should I just be extra salty and snide for the rest of this
Scream
segment?
into a pillow?
I wouldn't have it any other way, Mike.
Alright, so tell us about Kingdom Hearts' ultimate weapon called the Ultima Weapon.
Well, the ultimate weapon is one of those things where they kind of inherited it from the other Final Fantasy games, and it was in 7 that Cloud's best weapon was called the Ultima Weapon, and that's sort of just stuck with the series since then. Lightning has one, Noctis has one.
There was also an Ultima Weapon in Final Fantasy VI, but it was translated as Atma Weapon.
Yes.
But
Ted Woolsey.
Yeah, so I think that's where it started, but it became more of a thing in Final Fantasy VII, where every character has their own specific ultimate weapon. But yeah, let's go back to Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, well, it sort of has a lineage, and Kingdom Hearts being a Final Fantasy Disney crossover, inherited that part of the lineage. The thing about the Ultima Weapon in the Kingdom Hearts games is it's easily the best Keyblade in the games that it is present in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I think it's in one of the spin-off games as well, but I'm not going to get into that for the purposes of brevity. In Kingdom Hearts, you don't get the Keyblade right away by completing a world or defeating a boss like you normally would. You have to collect synthesis materials, and doing so is an enormous pain. In Kingdom Hearts 1, it's not so bad, because you have to, you just go to the Moogle workshop in Traverse Town, and eventually give them the materials you find, and they'll be able to make it for you. You have to collect all of an item all of the rare ore called Orichalcum in the game, which requires you to complete the mini games and do well at them.
Mentioning collecting Orichalcum is giving me all kinds of flashbacks, because that's just a very popular collectible metal in RPGs.
Indeed, yeah. In Kingdom Hearts, you have to complete certain mini games. I think you have to complete all the 100 Acre Wood games to get an Orichalcum. I think there's one hidden in each world. Actually, I would have to look, but they changed the locations of it in the final mix version of Kingdom Hearts 1. So the one that's widely available now in the HD collections is different than it was in the PS2 version. In Kingdom Hearts 2, then they increased the amount of materials you needed to do it. In that game, you have to collect Orichalcum Plus, and the only way to get the rest of it is to complete the Mushroom 13 quests that they added in. Those things can go to video game hell where they belong.
I definitely remember. Oh, they're just dreadful. I mean, some backstory. They're based off of all of the organization members, aren't they? So they're all in specific areas of the game, if I'm right. One of them involves juggling one of the enemies for 5 minutes, and the best way to do it is by circling around them in wisdom form by firing at them for 5 minutes straight or however long. And it feels random sometimes. It just feels completely random. There are some of them are really easy. Some of them are just ridiculous. They're like tedious little mini games that just drove me insane. And I got the ultimate weapon eventually in 2. I got it in 1 as well, in Final Mix for both versions, but I don't know whether I'd want to go through it again. And actually, for the lack of one combo here, I almost feel like I prefer Fenrir in Kingdom Hearts 2, because it's just...
That's the one you get for beating Sephiroth, right?
Yeah, so it's less effort, and I say less effort, I mean, Sephiroth's not too bad, but...
Yeah, in 2, he's actually fairly easy as far as super bosses go into.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not even a Final Fantasy thing. A Kingdom Hearts collectathon for an ultimate weapon. I'll go and play a platformer for a collectathon, but not necessarily play Kingdom Hearts to juggle mushrooms around like a loony.
Your description of all the hoops you need to jump through to get these ultimate weapons does not make me more excited to play Kingdom Hearts.
Sounds like some lightning dodging crap.
Oh
boy.
It is akin to lightning dodging crap. The celestial weapons in 10 are another just grindy nightmare if you want to get them, and all of them require.
Oh, they're horrible.
When we played Final Fantasy X for the podcast a little over 2 years ago, I think the only ultimate weapons I maxed out were Orin's, Yuna's, and Wakka's. The first two because they weren't that challenging. You just had to fight a couple special battles, I think. But for Wakka's, I played about 55 or 60 games of Blitzball to get it, and maybe not recommended unless you like Blitzball as much as I do. Kill like a beast for life.
Oh no, I loved getting it. I mean, I'm sad because I did get all of the the celestial weapons and all the power-ups for them. I've done it twice.
What?
Yeah, there's a little trick with the thunder where there's a little section. If you just run around in it, it will always strike in one area.
I tried the thunder once and just gave up, and tried the chocobo races once and decided that wasn't for me either.
The chocobo races is always the one that I've really disliked because it does feel a little bit less akin to skill. I mean, at least with the thunder dodging, at least you have reaction times, and at least you have a chance to press the button. But the chocobo one, to get I think it's probably the sun sigil. That's a nightmare. But it's funny because getting the actual weapons is quite easy for most of them. It's getting the sigil and the crest, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really a pain in the backside.
Yeah, the crest is always hidden in a random chest, but the sigil always has, for each of the weapons, the sigil has a very specific side quest or task you have to complete. And now that you mention it, I think I got Riku's as well, because that was just finding a bunch of cactuars in the desert.
That's right.
But I got 4 out of 7, I guess, which is not as bad as I thought.
It gets harder in the international version too because of the stupid dark aeons, which
I
think we had mentioned this on the 10 podcast, but those things are implemented terribly.
They are awful. We've had to deal with that over here since 2001, so I'm glad you got to suffer through it in 2013.
A long overdue penance.
Wow. Oh wow. Okay, you did that on purpose.
Actually, no. I just realized the joke I made. Thank you. I'm not gonna own that.
Okay. For the uninitiated, Penance is the name of the like secret super final boss that you can fight at the Monster Arena in the international version of 10. But I thought that was the joke Peter was making, but I was wrong.
Oh, I thought you were doing that as well.
Right?
I've never done Penance.
I've never done Nemesis or Penance.
I've done Nemesis, but not Penance.
FF10's a cool game, and at least the final, the ultimate weapons all look pretty.
Yeah, I think Nirvana is a particularly nice looking weapon.
Really, that's kind of an interesting thing about ultimate weapons in general, and like going back to Kingdom Hearts as well. The ultimate weapon in both Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 has a very elegant looking design, and there's kind of a certain amount of bragging rights to it. Like, okay, so you get Save the King for Goofy, Save the Queen for Donald, and the ultimate weapon for Sora, and then your party's just like all decked out and stuff.
Yeah, they're so fancy and gaudy. It's like you have a little trophy. Like, yeah, look at this ultimate weapon. I got this thing.
You have proof of Omega.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's just that bragging rights element is where I think a lot of the collectathon or like 100% completion aspects of video games come from. Even if there's not really much of a bonus for getting ultimate weapons, it's more just you now have more power than anything else in the game type deal. But
it's the prestige of having that cool blue flash across the screen when Cloud or Terra or Sora or whoever swings that ultimate weapon.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of satisfying. It's a tangible reward for the work you've put into the game most of the time. Because sometimes I look at at making the Mushroom Heartless happy, and I'm just like, I want to destroy all of you, but I can't. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy X are both pretty good examples of the collectathon tedious angles of it that result in a big payoff. Do we have any other interesting examples on the docket?
Yeah, no, I have an interesting collectathon to counter your collectathon.
Okay.
In the form of another early PS2 RPG, Dark Cloud. These are, again, not particularly memorable for the way that they're... Well, I like the way you get them, but they're quite typically an example of a collectathon in an RPG, quite tedious. So, to describe the weapon system in Dark Cloud a little bit, you don't really need to buy any weapons, so they'll come out of chests in dungeons or random drops out of enemies and things like that. So most characters have about 6 or 7 weapons, and what you do is you fuse them up to make better weapons, and you do that by acquiring little stones which either boost the weapon's affinity against types of monsters. So you get like undead stones, undead killers, and metal killers, and dragon slayers, which if you put them onto the weapon, max the weapon up, and then upgrade it, those stones will be infused into the weapon, and you can see on the chart what you need to upgrade to get the weapon up to the next level, basically. So you might need like +5 fire, or you'll need a fire addition. It doesn't actually tell you how much you need, so you have to keep going until basically the weapon tells you it's ready to go. So they'll flash up as green. It'll be like, you need +5 fire, +5 or whatever wind, and whatever this.
Okay, Google search
it won't tell you.
Dark Cloud FAQs. Requirements for weapon levels up.
Oh, definitely. The thing is as well is that each weapon has 2 different paths most of the time. So there are some paths that are better and some paths that are worse. So there are 2 different main swords that Tone, who is the main character, who's the weapon I'm going to talk about, can get. And one of them is called Seventh Heaven, which is slightly more magic-based, if I remembered. But there's something called the Chronicle Sword, and the way you have to get it, you just have to fuse up any one of his sword like 5 or 6 times, basically. And you don't know, unless you're using a walkthrough like you've suggested, whether you're going to get that weapon. If you get Seventh Heaven, you're going to get something that's ridiculously weaker, and whereas Chronicle Sword is physically a lot powerfuler, and it's compared to probably a lot of the other weapons we're going to talk about, it's not a particularly pretty looking weapon. It's quite nice. It's silver with green on it, which is really cool, but you basically need it's got the highest overall stats for every type of enemy. So it's got like a 60 attack against dragon, undead, marine, but none against mage, and the magic stats on it, thunder and holy, are like 90, and to get them that high up is really difficult. you can buy most of the stones that you equip, but they only boost the attack stats or anything by like +1 and 2. So if you want to get the really higher level weapons, you need to do gem farming. So every dungeon has a back room, and those back rooms are completely randomized. So Dark Cloud is a dungeon crawler essentially, where every floor of each dungeon is random. So you might enter floor 14 of one dungeon and it won't have a back room or a back room key, but you might enter it again in a week's time and it will have a back room and a key. So what that does is takes you to a stronger area where the enemies are 3 times as strong and the experience is 3 times as strong. They're all berserked and they have rarer drops. So you need to get the gems, which significantly speed everything up. But the problem is there's probably only going to be about 1 every time you do it. So gems are really good in that they'll boost stats by like 20 or 10 as opposed to like 1 or 2. But it's just, without a walkthrough, it's almost impossible to identify where you're going. And Chronicle Sword's not even the best sword you can get. So Tone has a sword called Chronicle 2, which you can get after you've finished the game, weirdly enough, because they like locking the really special stuff right at the end after, doing absolutely everything. So when you've beat the game, there is a side quest, which is in a dungeon called the Demon Shaft, and Demon Shaft is a randomized dungeon like everything else. Most of the dungeons in the game have a max of about 25 floors, I think. So Demon Shaft has 100 floors, and you don't have to do it in one go, but you do have to. I don't think you can die. I replayed this recently and didn't do Demon Shaft.
And this is post game only, so this is like a Chrysler building in Parasite Eve or something.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So you don't even really get the full reward out of the sword because you can't.
Yeah, it's only the prestige, not maybe the end game usefulness that would make the rest of the game a cakewalk or at least easier. This is really just a trophy.
Can you carry it into New Game Plus?
I don't believe you can, no. So you literally get it after. I'm going to have to look that up in a minute, but I'm pretty sure you can't take it into New Game Plus, which is ridiculous because you have to fight the Black Knight Pendragon, which is by far the most ridiculous boss fight in the game. I mean, if you're using Tone as the main character anyway, you get ranged characters, and the game is completely broken if you use any of the ranged characters, so it's fine. But yeah, the feat. Something I really dislike about really powerful ultimate weapons, as Robert has just rightly pointed out, is there'll be post-game dungeons where you get them and you can't carry anything over, which is like a waste of time. It's just like a trophy, and I don't really like that because I don't get the glory of killing things in one hit with that sword.
Yeah, that's
You're
bragging
rights. After all the effort of going to get the ultimate sword for the main game, getting a post-game sword which you can't even use beyond beating the Pendragon is ridiculous. But I don't think it's as bad. Maybe it is as bad as Kingdom Hearts. I think Kingdom Hearts is more like mini games and stuff kind of irritate me, whereas I quite enjoy the synthesis aspect of Dark Cloud because at least you're kind of responsible for it, but it's not impossible to do without a walkthrough. You're gonna have to guess otherwise. But Chronicle 2 is a bit of a joke. Why would you give me that?
I played a bit of the original Dark Cloud, but it's interesting to see that Level 5's obsession with item synthesis goes all the way back to the beginning.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. A bit of a challenge, I'd say. Everyone's ultimate weapons are pretty much the same, so Chronicle Sword is just the one I picked out because it's the most well-known. Most other characters, actually, having a quick glance over it. So one other character has 2 different weapons, and the others all have 1 ultimate weapon, so just get it right with Tone and get it right with Ruby and you're fine. But to be honest, whatever you give Ruby, as long as it's magic-based, she's completely overpowered, but, Yay, level 5. Woo!
Demon Shaft sounds like an even dirtier sequel to The Legend of the Overfiend. Sorry.
No, I was trying to think of exactly the right Demon Shaft joke, but I think you beat me to it, Robert.
No, Demon Shaft is not fun. The game is good. It's old, but...
We made enough Shaft jokes playing Symphony of the Night.
Oh,
Yo, Mouth.
beautiful.
Actually, your story about the Chronicle Sword reminds me of a very topical game right now, which is Final Fantasy XII. And that game's ultimate weapon. Well, we all know about the Zodiac Spear, the one that was
Right.
you open one of 3 random treasure chests in the game. Guess what? You just shot down your odds of getting this thing to like nothing.
I think it was.
So
I think it
glad
was
they took
4.
that
I think it
out.
was 4 chests, and I remember one of the 4 was in that grid of 16 chests. That's that's in that path south of Rabanastre. You know which ones I mean? There's these 16 chests like sitting on a beach or something, and one of them was
So close.
yeah, that's where it is. And one of them was one of the 4 that disallows you getting the Zodiac Spear. And
Yeah, I've just got to that bit and I was tentatively going, oh, thank God, no Zodiac Spear. But yeah,
Which is just such a baffling bit of game design, and you wonder whoever would include it. Then you look at the credits and you're like, oh, how is
Akatoshi Kawazu.
It's all you. It was you all along.
That is such a Saga move.
it was me all along, Austin.
If you didn't do it, I was going to.
I'm so glad they took it out of the Zodiac Age. It's even
they?
funnier.
Yeah,
No, not the
Yeah.
Zodiac Spear. They took the method out, so you don't have
Really?
to do it randomized. Yeah.
Because I
but it doesn't
remembered the thing after I was just like running around open chest willy-nilly, and I was like, wait a minute, there was something that I never got.
That's
No,
It's gone now? Wow, sweet.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy, and also I suppose it's kind of a bit more moot anymore because there's only one class that can wield spears now. So
Ha.
And I made Fran one of them in my Zodiac Age playthrough, so she's going to be
Oh.
wielding until I can get that Zodiac Spear.
I shall wield mine if I pick one up, unless I get a really nice bow because I swear that Final Fantasy after 12 got some obsession with making sexy bows. So
I can see that, yeah. But the weapon I was actually going to talk about is another weapon from 12, the Worm Hero Blade, which is the
Oh,
weapon
that's
Oh,
that's the
you
one
get
that
for killing Iasmar.
yeah, that's the one that looks
Oh.
like the Dragon Quest 1 sword, isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing about that sword is that in order to get it, you need to kill the game's hardest boss. So once you have it, what's the point?
all 56 million
That's-
HP of it.
That's the way with a lot of these that we're going to be talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's like after you get it, like at least with the thing about the Ultima weapon. I know I'm diving this way back to Kingdom Hearts because I need to talk about Kingdom Hearts while I have the chance. But the thing I like about that weapon at least is for all the rigmarole you need to get it. Once you get it, you can use it on all the optional bosses and actually get some work out of it. But stuff like putting the ultimate weapon behind like a super boss, that kind of takes the I'm not a big fan of that method. I mean, I think you should be rewarded for defeating these powerful bosses, but the best gear in the game, I think, once that is just like, okay, so now what do I kill with this thing? Like, just random encounters?
Yeah, it plays with the idea that, a lot of people suggest with 12 in particular, but probably other games, is that if you get the ultimate weapon and spend the time leveling up to get said ultimate weapon, what are you going to do with it? Because by the time you get to the final boss with the ultimate weapon, especially in probably Zodiac Age's instance where you need to be like level 70 to do Yasmat with a realistic chance, you're going to kill the final boss in 3 hits.
Yeah,
It's a waste. It just takes the glory out of it, kind of. But at least it's pretty.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, and there is, yeah, like we mentioned earlier, the aesthetics of these weapons are sometimes they're just like, it's elegant looking, it's good to look at, it kind of shows on your character, hey, I put in the effort. But yeah, there was an article I read one time that was like, in Final Fantasy 1, if you do all the content, you will have all the power you need to defeat the final boss. In Final Fantasy 12, if you do all the content, you will be able to reduce the final boss to cinders within seconds. And that's stuck in a lot of RPGs.
I was just going to say I enjoy the journey more than the destination. I was joking earlier about it being the friends we meet along the way, but like usually when I get the ultimate weapon, I'm kind of like, okay, great, now what? But I don't really have that much of an opinion unless it's got some compelling and decent quest design behind getting it. So if it's I guess if it's a plot beat or if you find it in a chest like the Zodiac Spear, I'm not so excited about that. But Something like one of the examples that I was bringing today was the old SquareSoft game Live Alive, with the 7 different main characters set in different time periods, and
this is why we bring you along, Fenner. We need Japanese games that no one else has played.
Hey, I've played Live Alive.
None of you guys played it? Oh,
I
you
played
played
Live
I've
Alive.
heard of it.
Well, if you complete all the scenarios in Live Alive, they all sort of this malevolent force kind of brings all the time periods together into one like nightmare void, and all the heroes are together to form a party, and each of the 7 heroes has their own different dungeon that has like a different mechanic and kind of creepy music and something just weird and off about it, and you can go through these optional dungeons if you want to get their ultimate weapons. So, I mean, the ones that I really remember are like the Kung Fu Master's dungeon, where you're being pursued by this enormous fat, and you have to run away from him. And there was the Cowboy dungeon, Sundown, as well, where it's timed, and every so often there's like this ominous bell chime, and the screen gets darker and darker with each chime. And if you let it chime 8 times, you get thrown into a really tough boss battle, which is, beating that gets you another weapon on top of the weapon that's actually in the dungeon. So just like this like parade of like kind of surrealist quests that you can undertake if you want. I dig that kind of thing a lot.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I don't know much about Live Alive at all, other than that it was a thing. So that sounds really interesting. And yeah, I agree. It's nice when these things have a quest or a dungeon or just an interesting experience added onto them that isn't just item farming or bat fighting a boss.
I mean, combining the narrative hooks with what we were talking about earlier with collectathons, getting the ultimate weapons in any of the Trails games where you have to get every chapter of that particular game's book.
Oh yeah,
I really like those.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes the window is just too small on getting some of those books.
Yeah, so sometimes it's like you have to go back to the beginning of a zone when, like, in between 2 conversations between 2 different NPCs in the same town. Like, I don't like.
Yeah, it's mean. It's really mean.
It's extremely specific, and I did get one of the ultimate weapons in Trails in the Sky first chapter. But that was on a second playthrough using a guide, because there's no way I would have gotten all of the. Is it Carnelia's name of the book?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I never would have gotten it naturally without a guide. Get all of the chapters of Carnelia on my own.
There's a really cool one in Cold Steel. I think was it Blood Rose or Blood. It's got blood something in the title. And
a lot of red flower books that we're discussing in this episode.
Yeah. And it's this like pulp serial about like a female church appointed vampire hunter, which is it's thrilling at every chapter. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like those a lot.
Those are cool side quests. Because I mean, Cornelia in first chapter is basically a spy thriller.
Yeah, you meet the author in Cold Steel.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
That book. I've read about that. Actually.
I got to make my way through further in Cold Steel, I guess.
Dialing back a bit, though, getting back on topic. What you're describing with Live Alive, Robert, actually kind of reminds me of Chrono Trigger's getting Chrono Trigger's ultimate weapons, which we discussed a little bit on the Chrono Trigger podcast, I believe. But
they do share a scenario writer.
Oh yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Is Live Alive Kato?
No, it's not. It's I wrote his name down.
I don't know which one it is.
Okay, I know it's not.
Is it Tokita or Inoue?
It is Tokita.
Yeah.
Wait, Tokita Inoue as in Lost Odyssey?
No.
No.
And definitely not Inoue like Slam Dunk and Vagabond, right?
I'm getting them confused. Yes, you're correct.
That's the Inoue I know.
Tokita did the side quests in Chrono Trigger.
But I was going to say, yeah, because Chrono Trigger's that shares a similar thing where Chrono Trigger's whole end game is you can do all these optional quests for each of the party members, and that gets you their gear. And then in the DS version, they added even more weapons tied to the new optional content, and you can get Chrono's new best sword by undergoing a new story-specific boss that ties into Chrono Cross. And I always really enjoyed that aspect of Chrono Trigger on DS, because I'm actually Chrono Cross apologist.
I do like it when ultimate weapons are tied to character arcs, and the first thing that I can think, and the only thing I can think of at the moment, is a couple of Tales of Symphonia's ultimate weapons are tied to certain characters'
Yeah.
side quests.
Right.
I
So
wanted
the
to
two
ask
that
you what you felt about some Tales ones.
Oh, okay. So these are the only ones I can remember. It's been a while since I've played Symphonia, so I think it's Zelos' ultimate weapon, or one of them, the knife, I believe. You have to you have to do the Colosseum with just Zelos, and you have to fight.
I think several of them are Colosseum battles, but Lloyd Lloyd has two. One from the Colosseum and one from
That's right.
whatchamacallit, the big skeleton dudes. What are those called?
Oh,
Sword
the
Dancer.
sword dancers.
Yeah, sword
they're
dancers,
really
that's
great.
them, yeah.
They're really good fights. I love them. And Zelos is part of the Colosseum. The final boss for him is completely different. It's his little sister, Celeste. So you have to fight her. There's some brother-sister tension relationship there. But they're pretty good. The other one I remember is Genus's, and this might be a spell as well, but he was born in the elf village, and because he's a half-elf, he was cast out with his sister. So you had to go back at some point and do some kind of side quest in the forest, and I think this is probably more a spell, but I'm pretty sure you get a very good kendama as well for it. So I like those. I like it when they're tied to character development, because at least it shows, like we've said, that you're getting something else beside from weapons out of it. The journey is the most important part of it, and sometimes powering up to fight a super boss to get another better weapon is not the best way to do it. You want some character development out of it. But I'll stick with Symphonia for a little bit, or even the whole Tales series, actually, because there are some weapons in these games called the Devil's Arms in a
Yes.
series. These are really cool. So
cool.
In Symphonia's case, which I'll refer to...
sorry to interrupt, but when we were playing Tales of the Abyss earlier this year, I tried equipping... the Devil Arms are weird in that one, because 3 of them have sort of a holy theme, and 3 of them have sort of a darkness theme, when usually they're all of these twisted nightmare-looking things. But I spent a lot of my last few hours of the game trying to power up Guy's Nephilim weapon as much as I could. They're fun.
Yeah, so the general rule of thumb with the Devil's Arms is that they get stronger the more enemies you kill, but have to unlock them. Yes, so there is a quest that you have to do to unlock them. So in Tales of Symphonia, you do pick up Lloyd's sword, which I think is Nebelim, pretty soon into the game, and you bump into a man called Abyssian in Flanoir, which is the snowy town in Tetheala. And he wants you to collect all of these weapons because he can sense the evil coming off of you. So every time you go and pick up each of these weapons, there's 9 in total. There's 8 main characters, but Zelos and Kratos have 2 different types of weapons, so you go one for each of them. You pick them up, and he comes along and kind of praises you for doing it, and Presea can sense something really odd about him. So when you get all 9 of these weapons, Abyssian takes all of these, and he runs away to the Shadow Temple, and you have to travel all the way down there and fight a really cool, really powerful super boss. And once you've done that, the Devil's Arms are unlocked, and depending on how many enemies you've killed, they'll be ridiculously overpowered, because probably to get there you'd have to kill lots and lots of different things. But I really like how the series handles this side quest, because, like we said, and I think we discussed it in Abyss does it even more clever, because the professor who teaches Jade and Dist is called Professor Nebelim, or Nephilim. Yeah, so
I think it is Nebelim, but I was confusing them with Diablo 3 Nephilim, which is an eternal struggle for me.
But so in the story, she is their teacher, and she dies as a result of an accident that Jade causes. So Dist, he becomes obsessed with bringing her back to life. So there's a technology called Fomicry where they basically create clones. So the super boss for this side quest is that you have to fight Nebelim, and she's tough. Like, definitely one of the toughest bosses in that series, especially probably in the English releases, at least I would say the toughest boss. But there's some cool side quests with the Devil Arms, and I like the way that they would initially, when you get them, they curse you as well. So they're completely useless until you put the effort into them. That's one side quest where the effort is really worth it, I think, in series terms.
I love the Double Arms introduction in Symphonia, but yeah, I got to agree with you. When they kind of like spun it into like a character backstory in Abyss, I was like punching the sky when we started getting the story about Dr. Nebulem, and I was like, oh my
Yes.
god, it's gonna be the Devil's Arms, but it
Yep.
actually means something now.
It does. It was
Yep.
so good.
I distinctly
Exilia did
remember like the undulating teeth on Preseia's axe in Symphonia. That's stuck with
Oh,
me
it's
after all these
beautiful.
years.
Yeah, that and the evil eye, which is Colette's chakram, which has got
Yeah.
a big eye in the middle that blinks occasionally. Like, let's
Yeah,
throw it
I mean,
away from me.
I really had Soul Calibur flashbacks when I saw that Evil Eye weapon, because I mean both the games are Namco, and it really looks like the Soul Edge
Soul
blinking
Edge.
eye.
It does. Oh, it's brilliant.
It's like that it's like that Mitchell and Webb skit where like, you're holding these weapons and you're like, do you think maybe we're the bad guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I don't know. I have next to no experience with the Tales games, but that sounds really fascinating to me. And I may have to like bite the bullet and actually play Symphonia sometime.
I would recommend Abyss ahead of Symphonia, but I think.
Definitely.
I think Symphonia is just an okay Tales game. Well, Abyss is one of the best ones, but I've been
At the
accused.
time,
I've been
Symphonia
accused.
was really groundbreaking.
I've been accused of being a Symphonia hater before because I still think Fantasia and Eternia are better.
Oh, see, I'm on the same page with you with Fantasia. I love Fantasia.
Fantasia's great, and Vesperia,
Yeah.
Vesperia might be the best of all of them, but that one's significantly after Symphonia and Vesperia. But
I strongly disliked what I played at Exilia, and that's my experience.
It's not great.
I think Exilia is
It's
kind
not
of.
the best one.
I think Exilia is similar to Symphonia in that it's not bad, but kind of average for the series.
Yeah, I love it, but it's definitely got a lot of problems and not helped by the sequel at all.
Right.
No, not at all. I would recommend playing Symphonia. Like, I don't know if they've fixed it on Steam. I know that was a big mess when it launched.
Oof.
But like, if you still have your PS3 hooked up, it's like regularly discounted to like under $5.
Yeah,
So,
I have my PS3. So
I know
Yeah.
that our
so Abyss is very, very good.
one of our social media editors, Stephanie, who's been on this podcast a couple times, has been playing a Symphonia off and on for stream for RPG fans, so that might be worth checking out.
And check her out
Yeah.
eating toast while doing so.
Yes.
Toast
cool.
and pizza very often feature heavily into her streams.
But getting back on track. So, Mike, before we talked to Alana and Robert, you had mentioned that you had something to share, and I think before the podcast you mentioned a question that you wanted to ask.
Sure. The question I wanted to ask ties into what we've already been talking about. But first, I'm going to talk about the ultimate weapon I wanted to bring up, which is exactly in the opposite direction of what Rob likes about ultimate weapons. This is a weapon that is only about numbers and prestige and being a prize to be won, and that's the Yoshitsuna in the Disgaea series.
Oh,
yeah.
I've heard about this.
Now, maybe surprisingly, I have not mentioned my Disgaea love on podcasts before, but it's true. I played the bejesus out of the first 5 Disgaea games. I still haven't played the PS4 one, but I'm a big Disgaea fan going back many years. And the ultimate sword in the first Disgaea, the Yoshitsuna, which is named after one of the game's creators, Yoshitsuna Kobayashi, is a giant laser sword with an attack power of 4,000, when I believe the second highest attack power in the game is around 3,200. And it increases most of your stats by in the 500 to 1,000 range, when every other weapon increases stats by maybe 200 to 300. And it also increases your movement by 5, because why not? And has a ranged attack as a sword, because why not? It's just ludicrously powerful, but getting it is an ordeal, because
You get this from Ball or something?
no.
Item World?
It's more Yes, it's more complicated than Ball. But Ball is the hidden secret boss in many Nipponichi games, and we were talking about how Izmat has 50,000 HP or something, or 50 million HP or something. Ball is level 2,000 and level 4,000, and I believe has over 100 million HP when you first meet him. But by the end, but if you've been leveling up and you already have a Yoshitsuna when you fight him, you can kill him in a couple hits. Because Disgaea games are completely about excess and exploiting RPG mechanics and just seeing gigantic numbers go across the screen. They to which point, like, eventually the numbers get so huge they eventually drop 3 digits from them and just add a K to represent how many thousands of damage you're dealing with each hit. But to get the Yoshitsuna, or to get any of the ultimate weapons, basically every type of weapon has a rank, or a ranking system, I should say. Like there's 40 swords ranked 1 through 40, there's 40 axes ranked 1 through 40, etc. And the rank 40 weapon is the strongest one, so the Yoshitsuna is the rank 40 sword. But the only way to get it is to find a legendary value, which is I think about 1 out of 25 chance of the rank 39 sword, and then jumping into that weapon at your magic castle and fighting it, going through a 100 floor dungeon inside the rank 39 weapon, and at the 100th floor defeating the boss at the end, and but before defeating him, stealing the Yoshitsuna from him. And stealing is its own thing, because any class can steal, but only one class can steal with a success rate greater than 50%.
And isn't it a consumable item to steal?
Yes,
am I remembering that right?
You have to use hands, which are consumable items that allow you to steal.
Oh.
So you have to level up someone in
What?
You have to level up someone in the rogue class of demons very high, probably into the low thousands at least, and find a legendary rarity Cosmic Blade, which is the rank 39 sword, and jump through its dungeon of 100 floors and defeat the item god at the top. So yeah, Disgaea, it's completely insane. Like, you do not. The final boss of the story.
Did you do this?
Yes, I did. I got every single rank 40 item in the first Disgaea on the PSP version.
Good grief.
The thing about them is you don't need to do any of that, because, I mean, Bale is level 4,000, and Prinny Bale, which is his reincarnated version, is level 8,000.
But like you can beat that game at level 50 if you just go.
The final boss is level 90, and you can beat the game. Yeah. And if your equipment's good, you can beat the game at a level significantly lower than 90. But the more you level up, and you also can level up your weapons and armor, because every single item in the game has a dungeon inside that you can use to level up the item.
Whoa.
Which is you have to get your Cosmic Blade to level 100 just to get a Yoshitsuna.
Such a grind fest.
It's a complete grind fest, but it's a self-aware grind fest, and at least for me, an entertaining grind fest that's full of humor and really offbeat designs and Tenpei Sato music, and he's the most underrated composer in video games, in my opinion.
That stuff.
Yeah, he's a weirdo, and I love him. But it's like it's completely divorced from any story thing. The only reason to get a Yoshitsuna is to say that you have one, and maybe to defeat Uber Prinny Bale in one hit. It's there's no point to the story of it, and I think also, it's really only that first Yoshitsuna that feels special to me, because in later Disgaea games, they balance the weapons a little bit more. So I think in Disgaea 2, the rank 40 axe is stronger than the rank 40 sword, but the sword gives you more, like, other stat bonuses or something. They evened out how good the weapons were in future Disgaea games, but in Disgaea 1, it was an unbalanced mess, and the Yoshitsuna was so much stronger than everything else that it didn't really matter.
Things like the Yoshitsuna, and also like the insane amount of crafting and hours of dungeon diving that it entails to get like the absolute best weapon in something like Shiren the Wanderer, I find really, really fascinating to hear about, and I loved you telling me about it just now, but like I don't know if I would ever really want to do it.
Where's my patience? Yeah.
I understand.
I do really get like a kind of a sick pleasure looking at FAQs on like all the steps you need to take to do like a game in itself to get this one item.
The maths to get it.
The crazy thing is they got even crazier in later versions, in later Disgaea games, because I think that to get any item rank 36 to 40, you have to go to the Dark Sun version of a stage, which means you have to, like, beat a level and complete some arcane ritual or something, which allows you to go to an alternate dimension version of the level, and also probably go into the demon assembly and bribe senators to change laws to make them available. It's like there's so much weird exploitative big numbers nonsense in Disgaea games. I think it's sort of a celebration of weirdo RPG mechanics, but also it's not for everyone. It is.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, like, to just feel, I don't know, if you're in a mood for just feeling a bit mindless, like popping on a podcast and going through tens of floors of an item world. I think there's a pleasure in that.
Well,
but there's a pleasure in Disgaea.
Yeah, Disgaea is an excellent podcast game, and we've talked about what makes a good podcast game on these podcasts before, like Diablo, Disgaea, Dragon Quest. Those are my Ds of podcast games. But Disgaea feels special to me because it feels like the most self-aware, silly exploitation of numbers and stages and dungeons to get those ultimate weapons, which is why the Yoshitsuna it feels special to me. And it's the opposite of, say, a different strategy RPG, like Fire Emblem Fuin no Tsurugi, which has a specific ultimate weapon in each item class, but they're all attached to the story. And you collect each of them in Gaiden chapters, and you can only get the best ending if you find all 8. So, but I think you get 3 of them automatically in the story, and you have to unlock 5 chapters to get the ultimate ending. Whatever. Fire Emblem 6 is nuts. But that sort of takes me to the question I wanted to ask you guys before we close the podcast. And do you like it more if a character has one defined ultimate weapon that is that trophy, that prestige item, that you know is going to be the best item, the best weapon for them for the rest of the game? Or do you like it when it's an uncertain question? Like, you're at the end of the game, you have all the items available to you, but you're not sure what the best weapon is for a certain character, depending on how you customize them or how you want to play them. Do you like having one ultimate weapon, or do you like having, I'm not sure what the ultimate weapon is, I have to experiment?
That's a good question. For me personally, I think it kind of depends on the game for me. By and large, I think I prefer just having the one ultimate weapon or ultimate set of gear, because it's I think it adds a certain level of accomplishment once you have a character that's all decked out in the best gear, without that element of I built the character specifically for this gear, because I feel like that's a different kind of ultimate weapon. Like if you spec a character in Diablo or in Dark Souls or in something like that to best optimize that gear, versus just straight up, this is the best weapon for that character in the game.
That is a very good question. I think both have their merits. Peter mentioned Dark Souls. One of the things I love about Dark Souls is the staggering array of final forms that each weapon class has. So you can come up with so many different ultimates, depending on what your playstyle is or what you want to specialize in. And sometimes there's more than one answer that is, good for your build. That said, I do like it when there is some kind of one ultimate thing, maybe for each party member, that is shown to be like a horrible artifact that shouldn't exist, but it is the most contained power. Like the devil arms that we mentioned earlier, or just something that maybe has a little bit of plot significance, maybe not too much, but enough that you have gone on a quest in search of power and you found it. I don't know. I guess I'm just being ambiguous and evasive here, but I think both methods have their merits, in depending on the type of story that's being told.
Yeah, I think the Souls method is interesting, but also I'm not really a big fan of the amount of guesswork that goes into that, unless you're following a guide for a specific build.
Use a guide with a Souls game. Come on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just I would rather know up front this is what I'm getting myself into, rather than planning out my character to best take advantage of this gear eventually.
I fall pretty clearly on one side of this. I like having a specific best weapon available for every character, especially if it's a JRPG that's more story-driven. Diablo is a totally different kind of game for me, where I think tinkering and experimenting is much of the gameplay. But for a story-driven sort of JRPG style game, I like collecting all the ultimate weapons and then just going through the equip menu and just admiring all the high numbers that each of my characters has on their key stats. Yep. But again, I also love Disgaea, so of course I love seeing giant numbers on a menu screen.
I fall quite into this. I fall into the same camp as you, basically. I much prefer the story-driven one weapon, one thing, but I also really like some of the merits, like the Dark Souls thing that it's really fascinating that it's basically find what you're comfortable with, and sometimes even with ultimate weapons in games, it's not always the ultimate weapon is not always the best weapon, and sometimes, especially in action RPGs, where the speed of your attack is affected by the ultimate weapon. Like, oh, you lose one, you get one less combo, but your attack power goes up by 25. It's like, that's maybe better than the one that's like you get an extra combo hit, but your attack power goes up by 20. It depends on your play style at the end of the day, and I mean, I like things with story development anyway, more than just kind of number crunching, but both have got their merits for definite.
And
that reminds me of Ease 1, where
that's right. You need the second best weapons to beat the game.
Yeah. You get the silver sword, and you find like the much better battle sword after that. But the final boss in that game, he's hoarding silver equipment, and he's stealing all the silver from the mines, because that's the only metal that can harm him. So you have to like go back and equip the one that doesn't have the highest strength to touch him.
Oh wow!
And he's a mofo of a final boss too.
He's horrible.
I would be perfectly happy never fighting Dark Fact ever again in my life. But Lana, you also make an interesting point of ultimate weapons maybe having drawbacks, because I think we early in this episode mentioned at Final Fantasy VII a bit, where every character does have a designated ultimate weapon, but and all the weapons they all have a passive ability, and they all have 8 linked materia slots, but 0 materia growth. So when you equip spells to your weapons, like you do in FF7, if you're equipping the ultimate ones, the spells won't be able to grow and evolve. And in at least one situation, Cid has a rare weapon that you can find late in the game that's stronger than his ultimate weapon.
Yes, that's right.
So it's not an absolute that their ultimate weapons really are the ultimate.
Yeah, they're like the common trope with ultimate weapons is that the more HP you have, the stronger they are, or the opposite. And it's kind of
MP, or Barrett's is weird and is based on materia growth.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about weighing up what's better and what's not. One example I was thinking of, and I was going to bring it up, I did have a couple more, but this one's quite good for what you're comfortable with, is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Yeah!
The Masamune has the most powerful weapon, but it's not the best weapon.
Oh no!
The Chrysogrim. The Chrysogrim is
you gotta
kill.
You gotta kill Shmooze in the Upside Down Library.
Oh, okay, so I picked this up by accident in my second playthrough. I had no idea this weapon existed, so I picked up this tiny sword and was like, "Oh, the attack power is rubbish," and then proceeded to press the button, and Alucard was just flailing it around everywhere, and I was like, "I like this weapon. I'm quite happy with it."
Yeah,
but it's an example that
it attacks like 20 times a second or something. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and you can attack and move at the same time, whereas no other weapon lets you do that. So
but it's still not the strongest weapon in the game, Alana.
Are you going to talk about the shield?
Yeah, the shield,
and the shield rod.
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
The shield rod is a
death.
The shield rod is a slow, medium to low damage weapon. But whenever you equip it with a shield, and I think you press the 2 item buttons at the same time, square and circle at the same time, then it does a special attack based on what shield you have equipped. And if you find the Alucard shield, the strongest shield in the game, and equip the shield rod with it, then you turn into this invincible mass of death that kills everything your shield touches, and it's awesome.
Yeah, like Dracula goes down in 10 seconds.
And the ultimate from the super boss as well. It's
ridiculous. I was not on our episode of the Retro Encounter Symphony of the Night episode, which to my chagrin, because I adore that game. But man, that game is a lot of silly stuff you can do, and it rules.
Yeah, the Chrysogrim's a special weapon, but the Alucard shield and the shield rod are wonderful little breaks. That game, I love that game.
I liked how Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, it was really like your ultimate weapon was dependent on what animation you
That's right.
did best with.
If you if you could do your jump timing well, and you had one of the overhead swords or the katana, then you attack right before hitting the ground, then mashing attack again. You could do a double hit, and you just be bunny hopping and stutter stepping through the rest of the game doing double hits. And it was probably easiest with the katana, but you could do it with a lot of weapons. And really in that game, I mean, the Claim Solace and the I think the Muramasa was probably the strongest katana, are super super great weapons. And the Chrysogrim's in that game too, but they use the Japanese translation of Valmonway. But really, it was what kind of weapon and what kind of animation you liked the best and how you could exploit it the most was what made that game. And Aria of Sorrow's good. I should replay that. I think I just did a New Game Plus and that was it, and that was over a decade ago.
It is very good. It is actually considerably better than Dawn of Sorrow, which is still excellent.
Dawn of Sorrow is good, but I think I remember Aria of Sorrow more fondly.
Dawn of Sorrow is the Saturday morning cartoon version of Aria.
Yeah.
And the art style even reflects it.
Yep.
But the Julius mode in Dawn of Sorrow is special.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Maybe we should just do an episode on Aria of Sorrow.
I wish I still
Halloween
owned
is
it.
approaching.
Oh, I don't own it anymore, and it's 40 quid.
Hey, do you have a Wii U?
No, I sold it. I had it on Wii U and sold it.
We can think about that. I mean, but it is true that sometimes we suggest an episode during an episode, and then, lo and behold, 3 months later, it's a real episode.
Yeah, I'd love to replay that game. I love Warrior of Sorrow. Definitely second thing.
We'll get in the staff chat room and see what happens.
One more, as long as we're just bringing up more games with interesting Ultimate Weapon variations. Final Fantasy 15 actually does some interesting things with its best gear. Because a lot of the time in 15, you're going to encounter enemies that have elemental-specific weaknesses, and there are a variety of your standard elemental-specific swords, like this one does ice damage, this one does fire damage, but Ignis has an ability that will buff Noctis with an element, so that it kind of gets taken out of the picture. But once you get into the end game, for doing like high-level hunts and some of the last quests, there's a whole string of quests to give you really powerful gear that all have very specific conditions under which they are good. So Noctis has his Ultima weapon, his Ultima blade, which is just an upgraded version of his starting weapon. But you can get a sword that does a whole lot more damage. I think it's the Balmung, but that sword does a lot of damage as long as you have full MP. If you don't, it's actually significantly weaker, which means that in order to use it effectively, you can't use Noctis's teleporting abilities. And there's another sword that scales to stamina, so you can't sprint or run very fast in order to use it effectively.
Yeah, some of the FF7 weapons were like that. I think we mentioned it a short time ago, but
Yeah.
like Cloud's weapon is based on high HP, Cid's ultimate weapon is based on high MP. It goes like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's something I've always thought was very interesting about that series, and about the 15 in particular too, is like since you have like the 13 royal arms that you can collect, none of which are particularly ultimate gear, but they give very good stat buffs and have a unique move set. And a couple of them can actually be very broken in certain fights. The Star of the Rogue in particular is a really good ranged weapon that does a lot of damage. But those have the side effect too of continuously draining your HP, which means you can rely on them too much. It's just I have found recently that I am one of the 15 apologists, I suppose, among the staff. But I do find some of its decisions especially regarding combat, to be very intriguing. Whatever, I played the game for 100 hours. I'm allowed to enjoy it.
You are allowed to enjoy it. I like that.
I loved 15. I took days off work to play it, and I wouldn't take them back.
Great.
Who wants to go to work? Come on.
Oh, no. I hear you on that one, good sir. Unless anyone has any more last-minute stories they want to share, I think that'll about do it for this episode of Retro Encounter.
Honorable mention to the Egg Dragon and the Egg Ring and the Egg Sword.
Oh, and Lufia too. Yeah! Oh man,
so
so many eggs in that game.
Yeah. Give a brief shout out to the Egg Dragon and the Ancient Cave.
Oh god, the Ancient Cave might be the most intense optional dungeon in RPG history.
Holy mama.
We talked about Lufia 2 a lot on the Super Nintendo episode many moons ago.
You guys already talked about the Egg Dragon? I don't want to repeat myself.
I don't think we talked about the Egg Dragon. We just talked about how good Lufia 2 is mostly, but
It is so good.
Yeah, the Egg Dragon is special.
So the Egg Dragon is like the Shenlong of Dragon Ball, of the Lufia world, and you have to find his 8 eggs and bring them to him for one of 4 wishes. And each time he grants you a wish, the eggs scatter again, and you go find them in different places again. And you can do this until you run out of wishes, at which point he'll say, well, I mean, I don't have anything else, so you want to have a fight? And he's the toughest boss in the game, who requires you to be at a super high level. And defeating him bestows you the egg sword and the egg ring, 2 items which just kind of like, if I remember correctly, they max your stats and they put like the cost of all IP skills, like limit breaks, to 0.
Oh
At least I think the
God.
ring does that. I'm not sure about the sword.
That reminds me of a dragon in Dragon Quest III, but I don't think it was in the original NES version of the game. I think it was added for the Super Nintendo version, or
Yeah?
Super Famicom version, where you can there's a dragon you can meet at the top of the castle, and fight her multiple times for different wishes. And but I don't think you I don't think you got an ultimate weapon. I know that you could revive your father who dies during the game, and you could get. And I think you could get some. I think you can unlock an extra dungeon or something. But that's a similar thing that they also brought back for Dragon Quest VIII, which is another thing that gave away ultimate equipment for Dragon Wishes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that bit.
On that note, I really hope we get that Dragon Quest III port for PS4 and 3DS in the US.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to play them.
I can take or leave 1 and 2, but 3, that Super Famicom remake is really great.
Dragon Quest III is like maybe the best old school Dragon Quest, and that's the one that really, for a long time, that was the one that sort of Japanese fans took as the gold standard Dragon Quest, like the sort of ultimate classic one.
Yeah, it was so forward thinking, and then that Super Famicom port added in like this whole like alignment system and the kind of like Ultima 4-esque character creation at the beginning. It's really good.
I never beat the NES version of Dragon Warrior 3, but I did beat it on Game Boy Color, and it's a super
that
good
kept
RPG.
that kept all the cool stuff from the Famicom Super Famicom rather.
Oh.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I really like Dragon Quest, guys.
Like Dragon Quest V episode. Am I allowed to stick in one kind of personal, obligatory Alana reference at the end of this?
Allowed. It's encouraged.
I wonder what this could be.
It's encouraged.
Hey! So, yes, Guys of Arcadia. So there are 2 weapons in this game, depending on what version you're playing. These are far more traditional, and perhaps why I really like them is because they embrace all of the aspects of the game that I really love. So the Voltic Blade, less so. That's the ultimate weapon of the Dreamcast version. So towards the end of the game, you'll be getting one of the main character's ships out of the vortex, which is basically you go down this vortex and you go into the undersea, under the clouds, which is where Fena's ship's been buried because at the beginning of the game it's been shot down. And so you have to use a radar to sense where these 2 pieces of material called Valorium are, and if you get those 2 bits, then you need to go and recruit a crew member called Ryu Khan, and once you've upgraded his shop enough on Crescent Island, he will forge you the ultimate blade with these 2 pieces of Valorium called the Voltic Blade, and it's the clunkiest looking cutlass in the world. It is the size of... It's like a cake slicer crossed with an axe or something. It's ridiculous. But it's got some nice runic carving on it. It's just a nice kind of... It's rewarding in the sense that you can get your entire crew and get this, so it's a nice way of implementing that your entire crew means something and do something relevant. But in the GameCube version, an additional weapon was added called the Skyfang, and to get the Skyfang, you had to get you had to get the following pirate rankings. So Vice could attain multiple different rankings depending on how much piracy he'd done and how much good deeds he'd done. So you had to get Charismatic, Extravagant, Exploration King, Sky Battle King, Battle Lord, and Bounty King. And to do that, you had to get all of the discoveries. Bounty King. You had to get all of the discoveries. You had to beat all of the bounties. You had to get 95 of the treasure chests, I believe, in the game.
I think it's 95% or above the number of total treasure chests in the game.
That's right. And
might be only 90. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think it is 95.
I feel like 95 is a good number. And you had to basically do everything, but you had to go and find all of these discoveries. And basically, it felt like it was a reward for becoming the ultimate sky pirate. So you've got this weapon, and you also get a secret boss fight at the same time as well, which is exclusive to the GameCube. So you get the last secret boss fight, and you also get the last discovery, which is the golden hammer shoe, which is the golden bird that sits above the archway between Pirate Isle and Sailor's Island. But it was just a nice way of implementing all of the... It was a good way of doing a collectathon, because the collectathon, in inverted commas, in Skies of Arcadia is an excuse to just fly around the world and explore it.
And flying around that floating islands world is just so much fun. It's one of my all-time it's one of my all-time favorite world maps.
Oh yeah,
one special thing about the Skyfang, which I did get with help from a guide of the second time I played the game, was that Vice fights with cutlasses, and he always has his main hand cutlass, which changes with equipment, and his second cutlass that he holds by one of the handles, which I was almost like a tonfa, which I always thought was neat. But the Skyfang is the only weapon that changes his off cutlass as well, and that they both they both get to be fancy, lightning-y cutlasses. And instead of just having one big fancy one and his regular little cute one.
Yeah. And the nice thing about Skies is you don't need to be particularly overpowered to do any of the secret content anyway. It's like you can be quite an even level, get this weapon, and still find the final boss. Not challenging, but kind of a one-on-one fight, which is worth it. Not one-on-one, but you're on the same level, essentially. But I just thought I'd get it in there, because everyone knows how much I love this game. And I love the ultimate weapons.
I'm very glad that you did. I came across this when I was researching what I wanted to talk about, and I thought, if we're having Alana, we've got to have this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad I squeezed it in. When you started saying, I'm going to ask this question and wrap it up, I was like, no, stop playing this guy. Like,
I didn't mean that necessarily. I just meant before all was said and done, I wanted to ask the question. But no, we managed to talk about both things.
And this is why I love you guys, because we're about to wrap up for the podcast. It's like we love... Here at RPGFan, we all are passionate about these games, and it's just like, we're going to finish the podcast? No, let's quick get 2 more in here. 10 minutes easily. Like that's fantastic. It's a great thing. But does anyone else have a last one they want to squeeze in here? We can talk about grinding the adamantoids in 13 or something. I don't know. Am I the only one who did that?
No, I did do that. Oh God.
Oh, did you? Oh man.
I did, yeah. That was a time of my life.
It's funny. Okay, we're dragging this out again. But my friend, a friend of mine is playing 13 right now, and he sends me a text being like, "Yeah, so playing this is actual torture." And I'm just like, "Why? What happened?" And he's like, "I just sold this material and didn't realize it."
Oh God.
He was like, "Oh no."
I mean, this isn't something I've done, but to really, really close this off, anyone who's played Final Fantasy XIV and its expansions knows how difficult the
relic weapons. Oh God.
Oh, to get.
I've heard horror stories about relics from Derek and Mike Salvato and others, and it just makes me never ever want to do those quests.
Oh yeah, some people in our free company have done it, and I just look at them and I'm like, they're really pretty. They're gorgeous. Like the bows, like the bard's bows are ridiculous. It's like they've got 4 freaking angel wings sticking out of them and everything, and I'm just like, I want it, but
then you see the requirements. It's like, well, I could just do Palace of the Dead weapons instead, and I made Ninja anyway.
Exactly.
So I really need to play some 14 with you guys. I downloaded the trial, and I hope to, put some time into it when I've actually got some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still paying for it every month, but I just don't have the time for it between all the games we've had come out this year and Retro Encounter stuff. I've been really hamstrung, but I want to get back into it. It's excellent.
It'd be fun to run around with you guys, I think.
Yeah, I'm a cat boy with a giant axe bigger than my body.
Nice. Well, on that note, that'll about do it for episode 98 of Retro Encounter, the Ultimate Weapons podcast. Closing us out, just remember, you can always get in touch with us, retro@rpgfan.com. Be sure to hit us up on the boards. I Have Fury on the boards, also at I Have Fury on the Twitter. Mike, where can I find you?
You can find me Monsoon on the boards or The Real Monsoon on Twitter.
On the Twitter.
On the Twitter.
That's important. Fenner, how about you?
Well, you can find me in the men's room because I really got to pee. But Sorry, folks. I'm on the boards as Towns Car Marty, and you can find me on the royal Twitter at Misanthrobob.
Excellent. The royal Twitter. We're moving up. Alana.
So on the boards, I'm Diving Falcons, and I tweet the tweets on the Twitter at Alana Hagues.
That'll about do it for this episode. So thank you so much for listening, you guys. Mike, real quick, what do we have coming up?
Right. Well, this is episode 98, which is 2 away from episode 100. So in a couple weeks, we're going to have a special 100th episode extravaganza on this podcast. Look forward to that. I won't say exactly what we're doing, but you could say it's a little bit like episode 50 and also a little bit like a different essential episode of our podcast. But before we hit that, I believe we're starting up the September game, which is, as we mentioned last week, Final Fantasy XII. FF12 had a recent remake, and just a bunch of people on staff were playing it, and there's a bunch of FF12 fans on staff, so we're decided to make it our big episode of September.
All right, and with that, thank you so much for listening. Retro Encounter signing out.
風ささやく青き春綿毛と散歩ふわふわ舞いどこ行く私の翼果てのない空果てもなくゆく幸せ